Yeah, that music gets me every time,
Boom.
man. Boom. It's like the Return of the Jedi is just landing. Kind of like what I feel like I'm in like we've said before, we're like in a Star Wars movie. But what's up, everybody? Tony Cotillo here at Cotillo 23, John Coker at PGH John 36. This is the Fantasy Firebox. I think this is episode 14, John, not 100%, but we run this every Wednesday or Thursday every week. Do some fun stuff tonight. We'll talk about the week that was. We'll talk about some more injuries, some waiver wire ads. We will build a DraftKings lineup like we have been doing in the past, and some interesting questions about maybe some Miami Dolphin and Detroit Lion gems that people aren't talking about. What's going on with the Rams backfield, because that just seems like a cluster. You know what? LeVeon Bell, John, your boy from Pittsburgh, gets released. Where is he going to wind up? Please not let it be the Chiefs, because I don't want to hurt CEH's value. Okay, but let's just start right from the beginning. And, listen, waiver wire picks are always the biggest thing, biggest topic of conversation. I think one of the biggest things I'm looking at was the injury to Dalvin Cook. Obviously, he's not injured to the point where he can't play, but with a bye coming up, it makes perfect sense for them not to play him, give him the rest. He gets 2 weeks off. Alexander Madison looked really good, man. He looked really good. And I know he's not Dalvin Cook, but I think he could be very serviceable. For me, he's the number one waiver I'd followed by my own waiver wire gem. I want to get your opinion on this, in Myles Gaskin. I think Myles Gaskin has the opportunity to be a tremendous fantasy running back, because Jordan Howard has fallen out of favor. Matt Breida can't stay on the field, and they're getting slowly but surely, they're giving Myles Gaskin every single opportunity to produce. What do you think about that, John?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that they sign Howard and Breida, and we think it's going to go one way, and those two guys get drafted. Neither of them high, but they were like going back to back practically. I mean, in fantasy drafts going in. And then Myles Gaskin. You know what I mean? Myles Gaskin. Like, I don't know how you bring in two free agents and then go run with this guy. I mean, it's almost unheard of. But, really is. I mean, he's getting volume. They trust him. I mean, he was even getting goal line work. I don't know about this last week, but the week prior, I mean, he didn't even get pulled out in goal line work with Jordan Howard. So, and he's catching balls. I don't know that you can expect like 150-yard, 2-touchdown games, but you could definitely expect 17 carries, 70 yards, 4 to 5 catches or something, in that range.
Yeah, I listen, I really think, I mean, it's a guy I'm really excited about. And I'm only saying that because how many times you pick up a guy who does it all in week 6 of the fantasy football season? Literally does it all, plays for a team that, let's not make no mistake about it, they're scoring some points. Miami Fitzmagic is doing some stuff out there. I mean, listen, are they going to win you a championship? No, but Myles Gaskin is owned in over 80% of all ESPN and Yahoo leagues. He's sitting there for the taking. Okay, and as we do this podcast right now, for people who don't do 2-day waivers, hopefully you got Myles Gaskin. I went live yesterday for the Final Judgment on Daily Ticket on Fox Sports The Gambler, and he was my number one pick. They asked me, who's the guy? If you right now, you can only pick up one guy. Who is it? I said, Myles Gaskin. Okay, he's a top 40 running back this season, literally sitting there, John. Okay, he 16 for 57 and a touchdown last week, and he had 5 catches for 34 yards. That's the kind of player that you want. That's the kind of player you look at. I mean, you hear the word bell cow. And listen, if he gets those carries up to 20 and he's getting 5 to 7 or 8 targets a game, and we're talking 20 points per game running back potential here. And to get a guy in week 6, that's fantasy gold, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think he's been off the waivers a little bit. I know I have him in, I think, 2 of my 4 leagues, but I mean, I got him in week 3. Or something like, I pounced.
Right, because you know what you're doing.
Somewhat, yes.
No,
you
not
could
to
say
sound
that.
arrogant, but I'm just saying, like,
right.
He shouldn't be available in some of these leagues. That's ridiculous.
Right. Volume and owning a job is priceless. The only thing that's not good is if you fumble, not fumble, but if you can't perform so much where you're getting 14 carries for 30 yards week in and week out, and your team's losing, yeah, you're going to lose your job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, and that's the biggest thing. The Dolphins actually look like a competitive team. So
Yeah,
they're
they
in
do.
games. And he doesn't. I still think a lot of the goal line work's going to go to Howard, but he's catching the balls. Brieda is MIA. So yeah, no, great pickup. If he's still out there, absolutely. You said about Madison. Look, he's taken over for Cook in that offense, but it's going to be 1 week. So
Right.
I hung on to Madison. It was I wasn't a shallow league, but shallow bench spots. I had Madison, but I ended up having to cut him just because of injuries and things that happened. But yeah, Alexander Madison, anytime he has to step into the starting role for Cook, he is an RB2, period. But if they're both playing, different story. And you have to realize Dalvin Cook does not have a long-term injury. So if you already got 2 good running backs that are starting, I wouldn't even waste the time unless you have the bench spot to be able to ride it out for another Dalvin Cook injury.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And listen, we talked to you hit the nail on the head when we talk about, Miami Dolphins. They're being very productive on the offensive side of the ball. And that's why I labeled this episode as some Miami Detroit gems, because guys like Myles Gaskin, right? Guys like DeAndre Swift in Detroit. Finally, I remember, John, me and you both broke this episode down when we were talking about all the divisions in football in the preseason, and we were very excited about the potential of DeAndre Swift. And then, lo and behold, he gets hurt a little bit. They bring in Adrian Peterson. Now we're like, what's going on? Now you have AP, you have Kerryon Johnson, you have DeAndre Swift, but he's looking better and better week to week. Right? He really is. I mean, he's not getting the rushes, but he's getting the ball through the air. And at least he's getting involved in the offense. So I think maybe this could be a thing where we think about, he's kind of developing and understanding the playbook. And I think that eventually, my opinion, I think he will overtake 4 carries. I don't think he'll overtake the number 1 spot, but he'll at least be a really, really good split. And he's going to get a lot of catches. So I think he can be very, very useful, especially 75% owned. I mean, he's still, there's not many options to get him, but if you can get him, I think he's a good find.
Yeah, I don't know. That Detroit backfield has been a mess for years. Years. I mean, think about
that team has been a mess for years.
Yeah, and every year it's like, oh, Kerryon was supposed to be the guy. I mean, how many guys have they had over the past 3 years? I mean, I can't. Bo Scarborough, he comes in because Kerryon gets hurt. I mean, it's just guy after guy. But yeah, the Adrian Peterson signing was really like the dagger. Like you could kind of envision a Kerryon Johnson, first, second down, DeAndre Swift, third down, and rotate series every once in a while. But yeah, then you bring in AP, and it just, I don't think he's going to get enough volume with AP there. The way the team's going, like, I don't see him busting out. I really don't. I see a lot of okay performances. You're tied with bye weeks and injuries, and you need a guy. He has a high floor, low ceiling. You know what I mean? This guy, he's going to get you whatever 6-8 points guaranteed if he plays. But I also don't see him exploding. I mean, he could break one. Don't get me wrong. He is an explosive player. But I mean, you're looking at about 8 to 10 touches a week, and I don't really see that volume going up too much.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of think differently. I think that eventually, especially with that team, I think it's a role reversal right now. I do. I think AP was brought in because he's the veteran guy, and they needed a really good presence there, and they were waiting for DeAndre Swift to kind of develop and learn. And I think he's learning more and more and more. And I think eventually I would say around week 10. I think that'll be the point where we could get that DeAndre Swift factor where he's getting more than 8 to 10 touches. I think he bumps it up to 15 or 16, which could be very, very serviceable in fantasy.
I hope so. I hope so. I would love it.
I think that's where we're going.
I would love it. And I mean, look, he's short, or for NFL standards, but I mean, he's 215 pounds and he's quick. He's just so explosive. I mean, I'd love to see him give him the rock more. I really do.
Yeah, he was very, very, very talented, and I say that in college, right? And we always talk about, well, the college game translates to the NFL, quicker speed, it's a faster game, the players are stronger, so sometimes you get that mental block, right? You get that physical block that says, okay, I have to learn how to play with these guys, and I think that's all it is. He's very talented. It will translate. It's just going to take some time. Now, one guy who is talented, who was out of the league and comes back into the league, was one of my sleeper picks last week, and Devonta Freeman is finally starting to show up a little bit. Now, I say finally because a lot of people thought that he was going to instantly come through week one and all of a sudden be a workhorse. Like, they have to relax, pump the brakes a little bit. This is week 3. But his percentage of touches has gone from 21 to 46 to 62. And if you watched him run in that game against Dallas, it doesn't matter if it was Dallas or New Orleans, doesn't matter who he would have played. He was playing with that physicality that we're used to seeing for Devonta Freeman. He was getting outside. He was going east and west, not just north to south. He's starting to get his feet. He's starting to get his legs. And I'll tell you what, if he could get up to that 20 carry a game threshold and start to get those 4 or 5 catches, I'll tell you, Johnny, he's another guy. We're talking week 6. Week 6, halfway through the fantasy football season, and we're finding number 1 running backs. And again, low-end number 1 running backs, but still, number 1 running backs sitting out there waiting to be plucked. Right? Some guys didn't take Devonta Freeman. They left him there. They didn't think he was going to do anything. So, he's a guy I think is honestly, I think he's a star. He's growing into a must start every week. Give me another couple weeks, but I think right now he's a streamlined guy, but I think he's a must start after these next 2 weeks that he develops and starts to get those touches. Do you agree?
I don't know that he's a must start, but yeah, I mean, it's bye week time, so he will be a starter. I don't know if it's a must start, but yes, he will be a starter. In week 3-ish or whenever it was when he's meeting with 3 or 4 teams, I instantly went and picked him up in like every league that I could. I got him 1 week early in one league, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be the volume. Saquon goes down. What do you do? You know that they're not going to rely on Dion Lewis or Wayne Gallman. They go and they sign Freeman. So what do you think they want to do? They want to mirror the offense as best they could with what they already had, which was Saquon Barkley. All right. So what guy can I go get that can be a 3-down back, catch the ball, run the ball? Now, look, what you're going to get out of Freeman is probably, I would say, I mean, this is a fantasy show. So I'm going to say you get 70% of what Saquon Barkley would do. So if Saquon Barkley would run for 1,400 yards over a entire season, Freeman would get right around that 1,000-yard mark. You know what I mean? If Saquon would get 12 rushing touchdowns, he could get 7 or 8. I don't know how those percentages are working out, but I mean, just in general, yes, I see him as probably a 15 carry a week guy and probably 5 targets in the passing game. You know what I mean? Hopefully he's catching them. But truthfully, it's on the shoulders of David Jones. That's what it is. Or Daniel. I said David Jones.
Yeah, you're thinking of
Jones.
monkeys.
I knew. That's what. Even when I said it, I was like, "That's not right." I was like,
"Hey, thinking of the monkeys."
Hey. But yeah, I mean, See, now I'm going to be screwed up for like a week.
You're
Daniel
done.
Jones.
You're done.
I'm done. Don't make me say his name. But Daniel Jones, he got to run I mean, that offense has just looked so poor. Evan Ingram is non-existent. Sterling Shepard's been out. I mean, Golden Tate, I don't know. He only plays 30% of the games because he's always nicked up. So yeah, but I like Freeman. I like him as a flex now, or I'll take him as a number 2. Hey, just like we said about Gaskin, you got a guy that's getting 15 carries and 5 targets in the passing game. I will take them all day. And those are the guys that you could buy cheap on, and you don't realize how valuable they are. Everybody, when you make a trade, oh, I want to get this guy or that guy. All right, well, are you willing to give up that same caliber of guy? You know what I mean? To get that running back, are you ready to give up DeAndre Hopkins to go and get your CEH or whatever, or a Josh Jacobs or a Mixon? Like you prepared to do that, or do you go to a little lower level and see if you could trade a receiver to a needy receiver team and get one of these, Devonta Freeman and other guys? James Robinson, he's been hyped all year. The only difference is he's had more touchdowns than Gaskins.
Yeah.
Really no different, but he's another guy. If you're going to target a guy, it's much easier to get that slow and steady look. Ain't going to blow up for 150 yards, but you know what you're getting every week. And if you have an extra receiver that you could trade to get one of these guys, I mean, it's beneficial, all three of them.
I agree. Now, let me ask you this. Let's stay on the running back trade here, because two situations I want to get your opinion on. And number one, we talked about this. What was going to happen in Chargerville? What was going to happen in the backfield? Austin Ekeler out 4 to 6 weeks. Was it going to be, was it going to be Joshua Kelly, or was Justin Jackson going to insert himself into that lineup? Now, I would, for one, was a guy who said, be careful, watch Justin Jackson. For some reason, Anthony Lynn likes this guy, and lo and behold, he gets the rock 15 times, scores, 71 yards, five catches, 23. He's got 6 targets. All of a sudden, he's inserting himself as a number one running back. And, all of a sudden, Joshua Kelly's an afterthought. Now, this could be week to week. It could be riding a hot hand. What do you see out there? Plus, what is going on in LA? Because one week it's Malcolm Brown, and then we see Darrell Henderson, and then all of a sudden Cam Akers gets a couple knocks, and then we go back to Darrell Henderson. Like, these two backfields, can we help us dissect these, please? Because I'm lost 100%.
I can't do that. I don't think there's one person out there that can do that. I mean, look, Ekeler went out. Justin Jackson and Kelly are going to absorb the workload. So, I mean, that's an obvious. Which one? All right, well, it was Justin Jackson that was the backup, but Kelly kind of overtook him like preseason a little bit. Look, Kelly looked really good the first couple of weeks, to the point where he looked like he could be a number one running back for fantasy in the right situation. I mean, he looked that good. Then Ekeler goes down. You're thinking, all right, well, can Kelly just step into that role? But here goes Justin Jackson, won't go away. I actually, in a best ball league, drafted Justin Jackson, and I've been so annoyed, ready to cut him, because Joshua Kelly is like, dude, this is now a third string guy that there's no purpose. And then here he comes. So look, while Eckler's out, I really don't know. I think it's going to be week to week. I mean, obviously, Justin Jackson, for what he did this past week, looks to be the lead guy. If I had to even it out, I would say it's a 60-40 split, 65-35. I wouldn't go over. Not to say that Justin Jackson can't get 90%. Not to say that Joshua Kelly can't come up and actually out-carry Justin Jackson or get third down work. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm going at a 60-40 split with Justin Jackson in the lead there. But, I mean, it could vary hugely because you don't know what the game plan is. Same thing like you brought up, the other LA team. I don't know what's going on with the Rams. I mean, it looked like Malcolm Brown was the guy because he was the old vet. I mean, how many years has he been in the league? 3 or 4?
Yeah, exactly.
But he was the old man of the running backs. So it looked like they trusted him. He got a little dinged up. Cam Akers was supposed to do it at the beginning of the season. Then they're both out. And Darrell Henderson looks like a world beater. And all of a sudden, one of them comes back. And I just go back to what what's the coach's name? What he said at the beginning of the season.
McVay.
He said, yeah. He said, look, I want my running game to be like the 49ers. I want a 3-headed monster. He said it preseason. That was, who knows? There can always be a guy that can take over a job and force you to play him, just because of his performance. But I really see that being what it's going to be this year. I see all three of them having a role. You don't know when it's going to be one versus another. If you're feeling lucky, you could play the lottery, or you could roll with one of these running backs.
Play the lottery, roll one of these running backs. I'm telling you, it is.
That's
like
what it is.
It is. It's running back roulette, man. It really is. There's no other way to talk about it. It's running back roulette.
And I've had Darrell Henderson for probably 4 to 5 weeks, and every time I rolled the dice, I rolled wrong. Every time it was wrong. I had him on the bench when he blows up. Oh, then I put him in the lineup. Then he does nothing. It's just like the New England backfield. Same thing. You're going to drive yourself nuts. I would rather be able to sleep well at night than have to, have heart palpitations on the running back situations of these teams.
Nah, listen, I hear you. Well, one thing we got right, and one thing we talked about, we were adamant about, was the Chase Edmonds factor. We talked about, listen, we labeled the episode, the episode "We Can't Stand the Drake," right? And I don't care if he scored; he didn't do anything for me. Chase Edmonds had the better game, and he's going to continue to have the better game week in and week out. This is going to be Chase Edmonds' team. I'm telling you, I fully believe that, and it's going to reverse. I mean, listen, he had his best game of the season. He really did, and 5 for 56, man. I mean, this is what you're talking. Another guy, John, just what we talked about, right? Another guy to where you insert. He's getting the touches, right? He's getting the targets, and he's scoring. So another guy that what are you going to get? 12 to 15 carries. Will he get up to that? I think he'll get about 12, but he's going to get a lot of looks in the flat. You'll get a lot of screenplays, man. A lot of targets. And if he can continue to do that, while teams are focusing on guys like Christian Kirk and DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald, he's going to be set to be a fantasy monster, man. He is. I really like, if you watch him, I know I get excited. You always temper my expectations, which is fine because I'm very excitable. I am, but
you get high and you get low, man.
I do.
Way too far on both ends.
I do, man. I do. I want to bury dudes who screw me, and I want to catapult guys at the top who I think are just that special. And I think Chase Edmonds is that special. Just watching him develop. I liked him last year before he got hurt. I like him again, and he's another guy that, I mean, listen, if he is sitting on a waiver wire right now, again, I want to join your league because guys that are up for waivers that I hear people that ask questions. Should I pick this guy up? I'm like, what? Pick this guy? How is he available? Who do you have? Why do you have 4 quarterbacks on your team? Like, why do you have 2 kickers? Please tell me why. And listen, I'm telling you right now, if somebody has 2 kickers on their team, insert your fantasy card in a mailbox and ship it off because you don't belong in fantasy football. If you're, I'm sorry. Say what you want, John. You may disagree, but John, 2 kickers? Come on. Are you really carrying 2 kickers on your fantasy team?
No. Although I will say right now, my one league, the bench, it's such a deep league, and the bench was so bare. I forget who I actually cut. I said, you know what? Because I have Lutz. I said, you know what? I'm going to hang on to Lutz because I forget who it was. It was someone that was completely pointless.
That's fine. Well,
but outside, but yeah, I haven't had 2 kickers in 20 years.
Molly, check this: fantasy football, no matter what, is mainly luck, circumstances. Year of 2020 season, there is 0 chance of actually figuring anything out definitively. Any type of analytic for this season is useless. I completely agree. Really, I completely agree. Yep. Which is exactly why I stuck to DFS this year. I did. I should have never joined the one league that I did because now I'm paying for it because I can't even get into it. It's it's very cumbersome, and you know what? I'm probably wasting money, but that's okay. It's all good. It really is. But Chase Edmonds, man, Chase Edmonds is going to be the guy to own going forward. So you'll see. Week 8, week 9, everybody, if they haven't trashed the Drake yet, they'll be trashing the Drake because he deserves to be in the trash right now. Now, John, black and gold, man. We got to go right to the receiver position. We got to talk about your boys Claypool, right? We got to talk about Chase Claypool. Now, listen, let's preface this by saying we we listen. We did the show last night and we broke down the Eagles in the Pittsburgh game, and we talked about how fantastic he was. He was sensational. But if you think he's going to score 4 touchdowns, you're crazy. But what he did do is he developed, and you said, listen, there's a lot of mouths to feed out there, right? Eric Ebron, James Washington, Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster. The whole thing, though, to me, is when Ben develops a rapport with somebody, right? When he gets that rapport, listen, we're still talking about Juju maybe having problems being the number one guy. We're still talking about Juju maybe having a problem getting open and getting separation. Deontay Johnson can't stay healthy. And I'll tell you what, I keep hearing about James Washington for years, but what has he done? So at the end of the day, if Big Ben develops a really good rapport with Chase Claypool, could he be a week-to-week starter? What do you think?
I don't see it happening this year. I really don't. Look, Juju's still there. He's having a down year, no question. I really expected a big bounce back year. I mean, the whole passing game in Pittsburgh was a disaster last year, period. Like, just end of story. Ben's back. He was his guy. Now, remember, but even going into that year, the question was, can Juju lead the team as the number one receiver?
Yes.
Okay. So that question is still sitting there. The not an issue. The good thing is there's all these other receivers there. The James Washington pick was paired with Mason Rudolph, both coming out of, I believe, Oklahoma State. That was his deep threat at Oklahoma State. So they both got drafted. I think that was more the pairing. Look, Ben doesn't have any allegiance to James Washington. He's like that guy that just kind of shows up when Ben needs him to. He breaks off good routes. He makes a couple good plays. Look, Chase Claypool, it was Deontay Johnson the first 2 weeks with 10 and 13 targets. Deontay Johnson had 11 targets this past week. It's going to vary game to game, but yes, you need to get Ben's trust. I will tell you from what I've seen this year, Deontay Johnson has his trust. Chase Claypool has his trust. And we know from prior years that Juju has his trust. So that's 3 guys, but you never know where it's going to go. You don't know you cannot consistently have 3 receivers perform fantasy-wise week in and week out on the same team.
Tough.
I mean, we saw it with Atlanta for the first 3 weeks. What happened with Russell Gage? He disappeared even when Julio was out.
He did disappear.
Look,
he did. You're right.
Claypool is a big target threat, and he's not going to see 11 targets a game. Period. It's just not going to happen.
Our good friend Janet checking in. A long time no see. Edmonds worth a flex spot. And lastly, what do you do about Michael Thomas? Do you trade him? Wow. What? Wait a minute. Wait, before you shake your head. First of all, Janet, I will tell you, Edmonds, honestly, 100% worth the flex spot. 100%. No end if or buts about it. I'm giving you that advice. That's my advice. I've been hyping him on for the last 2 weeks. Michael Thomas. That's here's what I will say about Michael Thomas. We are in the middle of the fantasy football season. And we had this discussion about Patrick Mahomes a few weeks ago. And when you have a guy that's going to command maximum value, and maybe, just maybe, you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, could this be the down year of Michael Thomas based on 2 things? Based on Drew Brees, not the guy he once was, and based on a high ankle sprain. I'm telling you right now, the high ankle sprain is such a bad injury. Such a bad injury. Look what's going on with Lane Johnson right now. Okay, look what happened to Saquon Barkley last year. When they get these high ankle sprains, they're never right, man. They're not right. So what you have to think about, he gets injured week 1. It's a 4 to 6 week recovery. Okay, 4 to 6 weeks. So even at that 6 week recovery, it takes him 4 weeks to get right. Now we're at week 10, week 11, 2 weeks from your fantasy football playoffs. I'm telling you right now, if somebody came to me with a number 1 running back and a tweener receiver that was number 1/number 2, I'm taking a trade. Now, I don't know if we could talk about guys. Maybe that, maybe somebody said to me, I'll give you Clyde Edwards-Helaire and I will give you Cooper Kupp. Give it to me. I'm doing the deal. Right? If I can get a number one and I can get another like /1-2, I think you do it, especially depending on your roster construction. Right? Again, I know Jenna, we were going back and forth. She was talking about she has Darren Waller or somebody, I forget, somebody was going to trade her Darren Waller or she had Darren Waller. I forget what it was. She declined until, we were talking and I was kind of stupid, said some dumb stuff, but I apologize for it about fantasy, but because I was wrong. But Darren Waller's another guy. I mean, that Darren Waller, if you can trade Darren Waller top notch, like a top tight end for 2-for-1, John, I got to do it, man. I got to do it.
Yeah. Yes. It depends on what you're going to get. Put it this way. I am not paying for Michael Thomas because of the unknown factor. But if I own him, I'm still going to hang on to him. Oh, believe me, if I like your first scenario, and I'm sorry, I got knocked off for a quick second there. Your first scenario with CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Cooper Kupp, absolutely, I'm doing that. There's no question. I don't think, even as a Michael Thomas owner, I don't think I would get the other owner to bite on that. So yes, I would do it. It's not that my bottom line is right now, Michael Thomas's value is not high. So I want to see what he's going to do when he comes. You already waited this long. If you're going to do it, you might as well have done it 2-3 weeks ago. So he's so close to coming back. I would just say, you know what? Let me see what he could do. Hopefully, if he gets 13 targets and catches 8 balls, well, you have the same dilemma. Do you think that he's going to be hindered and Breeze and everything that you mentioned? Or do you think that, it's either a buy or sell at that point? But right now, I would not necessarily sell him. Granted, every player is available for the right deal. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If you have Zeke and somebody says that I'll give you Tyreek Hill and Josh Jacobs for Zeke, I'm doing it. There's always a price tag, but
always.
Yeah, it's just Michael Thomas's value isn't high. Truthfully, McCaffrey to me is in the same boat because I look at these guys and I'm looking at my roster construction and where I can get value, and I mean it's still name value on one side, but you don't know how good he's going to come back. Like even if you get a little discount, because of the injury, you don't know what he's going to perform to.
No, you don't. I get it. I think a lot of people hold on too long certain times, especially in fantasy. They're not ready to hit the trigger, so to speak. They're just not ready. And before they decide to pull the trigger, it's too late. They already lost. And I think that's why we always talk about risk versus reward all the time. So I just think that's right now you definitely have to set into what is part 2 of my fantasy season going to look like? What are the guys? Are there 2 divisions? Is it 2 guys in each division? Is it 2 wild cards? Is it the top 3 guys? You have to start looking at who that top team is. And if you can beat them, you have to start analyzing it. And if you don't think you have that guy, now's the time to start throwing everybody out there. Say, yo, I'm going to dangle this carrot. Who's up? Who wants some? Right? Who wants some? Anybody want some? And you're going to get the morons that give you the stupid trades. Like, let me give you 5 bench players for Michael Thomas. Like, stop. Dude, I'm not an idiot, right? Then you're going to watch the guys prey on the 0-5 guys. They think they're just going to give up their whole roster for nothing, right? That's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, I think it's all worth, like you said, it's all worth a conversation, 100%.
Yeah. Oh, and it's roster construction too. Like every league is different. I mean, even as I'm managing the leagues, what I do, the decisions I make at 2 and 3, knowing what my starting lineup is coming up in week 6 and what I need to do is different than in my free agent pick. My waiver wire is different than a league that I'm 4-1 in and have a different level of depth and going through different things. If you got a guy coming back, you make a decision. Alexander Madison, like if I was strapped for a position or, for a running back, yeah, I'm putting in a claim for him because I need to win this week. If I'm like sitting at 2-3 or 1-4, I need to win, and I don't have 2 starting running backs. But then in another league, you have James Robinson, James Conner, and Myles Gaskin. So even if you pick him up, okay, you could pick him up and still start him. Which one of those guys are you benching? Because they all have fairly juicy matchups. I'm not saying that I wouldn't start Madison, but then it's like, who you dropping for him? And it's so every league's different. It's all about what you have, but you're getting to the point now. If you have a losing record, you need to play to win this week. If that means your starting quarterback, where's my thing? If your starting quarterback has a bad matchup, Joe Burrow, I don't know that he's your starter. Jared Goff, they're playing at Indy and at San Fran. Look, if those are your 2 quarterbacks for whatever reason, I'm picking up what's his face? Fitzpatrick. I'll pick him up and play him against the Jets.
Why not?
It's not the guy that I want to, like, if I just lost Dak, I mean, I might pick him up for a week. I may play week to week on my quarterbacks. So, and I'm actually in a dilemma right now. Do I pick up Roethlisberger to have that? It's only 5 bed spots. That's it.
Okay.
So do I go and pick up Roethlisberger to have the replacement for Dak, knowing that I have a starting quarterback or whatever for the year? Or do I say, you know what? I'm just picking up Fitzpatrick and I'm going to play roulette through the season. And, but you got a losing record. What do you do?
Yeah.
It's Fitzmagic time.
It's magic. It's Fitzmagic. Molly says that's why she likes the concepts of dynasty leagues. It's because you're always got to be thinking ahead. Yeah, it's true. I'll tell you, Molly brings up a good point because something I've been wanting to do, and I think I would love. We'll save it till the end of the fantasy season, but I'd love to do like a whole episode on different style of leagues because I don't think enough people understand out there what they're all about. And we talk about DFS, traditional dynasty, keeper leagues, redraft, best ball. There's so many different leagues out there. People just don't have the right information, and we'll bring some people in to get on the right information. But I think a lot of it, like you say roster construction a lot. It's also about scoring system, right? It's about league structure. What does your league do? Right? Molly says she might go with Fitzmagic if I were in your shoes. I'll tell you what, Fitzmagic. I mean, listen, he rips, he puts that F on his chest, man, and he goes out there. I'll tell you, man, I can't believe it, man. I can't believe it. Great idea. Thanks, Molly. Yeah, Molly. Listen, I'll be honest with you because I'm not very familiar with redraft leagues, and because I only play certain kind of leagues, I will not label myself an expert in every league. And last year was the first time I ever knew about best ball leagues, and I absolutely loved it. Loved the best ball league. Set it and forget it. I say it's the lazy man, lazy woman's football league. It is spectacular. Set it and forget it, man. I love it. So that's a good idea. We're going to do, I'll try to get the Ball Blast girls on here because Michelle was really good. They do all that stuff. So maybe I can get her back on and, we can have a 3-box set. We could talk about all the different leagues. But John, you mentioned Ben Roethlisberger. And before we go on to building the DraftKings lineup, for the last half of this show, I said something the other day. I want to see if you agree with it because I watched 2 weeks ago. I was big on Justin Herbert, and I just said, listen, this kid, he's going to solidify that position. And once he starts, Tyrod Taylor's never getting his job back. Whether he's got a punctured lung or not doesn't matter. He's never getting a job back. And you see, this kid, he's got nothing to lose, right? Nothing to lose. And when we talk about fantasy, I say right now, he's better than Drew Brees. He's better than Ben Roethlisberger. I'm saying right now, moving ahead, rest of the way rankings, I am taking Justin Herbert over Drew Brees and taking him over Ben Roethlisberger week to week. What do you think about that?
I can't disagree with you. I don't know that me personally, I could pull that trigger.
You know me, I'm always above, man. I always
look, 25, probably 25 years, at least 25 years of fantasy football. and think about how many times a rookie quarterback has worked out for you in fantasy. Think about it. 25 years. There have been, sometimes not really even full see what RG3 did. It was his rookie year was a good year. Lamar he only played half his first year. Mahomes didn't play his first year. Peyton Manning was terrible his first year. Rodgers sat behind Favre for 2 years. I don't know. Yes, he's looked good. But I am not convinced that he is polished enough to read a defense consistently and make the quick reads. I think that he got thrown. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. But no, I mean, right now he's practically on pace for being ranked the 5th quarterback in my scoring system. If I prorated out his 4 games, but I can't. I think your comparison, would you take him over Roethlisberger? Maybe. I mean, it's absolutely feasible. I just think he's playing a little over his head. I mean, he's on pace for 36 touchdowns. Let's get real.
Right, and we know he's going to have a couple back steps. We understand that, but I'm just saying, right now. I mean, listen. Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger haven't been setting the world on fire, right? And I don't think we're going to snap our fingers and all of a sudden Drew Brees is going to get an arm back. It's just not going to happen. Drew Brees is going to be who he is, and I'm telling you right now, people already complaining about Taysom Hill being into the game too much, and it's going to continue because Sean Payton sees what we all see. Drew Brees is lost some zip on the ball, and he knows that. Has to protect the veteran, and he'll continue to do that. So I'm sorry. I want a kid. That ball he slung out there to Mike Williams. Are you kidding me? Really? That ball he slung to the corner to Keenan Allen. It's unbelievable. I love it. Robert's checking in. I look a lot at the offensive schemes and defensive strength of schedule when choosing top end positions. Absolutely. John's a big proponent of that. That obviously that's the smart way to be, right? 100%. He also says Pittsburgh's blue collar town mentality resonates well with running the ball historically. James Conner will do great things this year as long as he's healthy. Listen, as long as he's healthy, right? And that's always the problem with James Conner. Right, as long as he's healthy. And if he is, fantastic. But here's the interesting thing. What if LeVeon Bell comes back to Pittsburgh? Do you think, right? Because we haven't even talked. Listen, the guy gets released. I swear if you gave me money right now, he's going to the Patriots. Just my opinion. But it's because that's what always happens, right? I mean, listen, they're hyping up Damian Harris and this and that, but you know as well as I do, Bill Belichick's mind is spinning right now, going, I get Lev Bell and a healthy Cam Newton. Man, I'll tell you, man, look, and Lev Bell will look tremendous. He will look tremendous, right? He will always look tremendous.
But would Belichick feed Lev Bell like a workhorse? He hasn't done it since who?
No, but I don't think he Maroney? Has to be. He doesn't have to be. He could give Bell 15 carries a game and 5 touches. Right? I think he could do that.
That's a lot. That's a lot for the way that I'm just saying for the way. And when you say a game, every game's different. Are they really going to be still bringing in Rex Burkhead for his 6 to 8 carries? Are they still going to bring in Damian Harris for 3 to 5 carries? You know what I mean? James White trickle in. I mean, it's not like there's 45 carries to go around to all these miles. That's why I don't know. If they went with Bell and fed him, I would love it. Just feed anybody. I don't care who it is. I don't care if you're a practice squad guy, the worst guy on the roster. All I want is volume. I want to see the team committed to the volume. That's it.
I agree. Al, second in. What's up, Al? He says he's talking about Justin Herbert. He's playing well right now, but he's gotten into the meat and potatoes of their schedule yet, bro. He's still a rookie. I get it. I know you and John are right. I get it. So, but I'm just saying, man, watching the way he's just fearless and slinging the ball. Man, I'm talking about if I'm a fantasy owner and I'm sitting with a stiff at quarterback, I'm starting Justin Herbert every week, man, until he burns me. Start until he burns me. I mean, Joe Burrow had a bad week last week, right? It's going to happen. Everybody's going to have a bad week as a rookie.
Well, I will say on top of that, I don't know with all the schedule changes, it's been a nightmare for my all my spreadsheets and everything,
Oof.
flipping all these games. I had everything set. So I'm looking at the Chargers and I see 2 bye weeks because they must have had something change and I just had to change it and I didn't go through and do the whole thing. Bottom line is, though, what it appears to me on what I'm looking at is they got Miami, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, and Denver as for their next 5 games.
That's not a bad schedule.
That's not a bad schedule at all.
That's
now,
not a bad schedule.
After that, I mean, then they go Buffalo, New England, but then, then it's Atlanta, Las Vegas, Denver again.
And Atlanta's probably around playoff time for fantasy.
Yeah.
Right.
So the schedule's pretty forgiving.
I like that. Our buddy Bill second says they always find the next guy up in Pittsburgh. Bill Fleming, yeah, I'll tell you, they always find everybody in Pittsburgh. They find every receiver and every linebacker that nobody else freaking finds. I'll tell you that. They find them all. Rob checking back in says, look at the Patriots printing that money. Kraft and Belichick are about second chances via Randy Moss. Absolutely. This is the Patriot way. It's the Patriot way, man. Because they want to be able to say, yeah, we made it work. We look past that. We made that. That's what they wanted. That's their MO, man. That's their MO. I got a couple Twitter questions. Jenna wants to know what says sloppy internet connection right now. She can't get on. What should she do with Deebo Samuel? John, I'll let you answer that one. Because that receiving core is just a mess out there. It looks like Brandon Ayuk is really starting to take over a little bit. But again, Jimmy G, horrible game last week, right? Horrible game. Look, listen, I don't know who looks worse sometimes, him or Kirk Cousins. Never been a Jimmy G guy. Beathard comes in again, tries to bail them out, but Deebo can be really, really good, right? Deebo can be really, really good. The whole problem is health, right?
Yeah, I mean, he had the injury. The quarterback turnstile over there is not helping out. No. But they weren't a big passing team in the first place. I did not draft any San Fran 49er receivers. I don't own any at this moment, and I probably won't own any for the rest of the year. So, yeah, if I had him on my roster, I'd hang on to him as a number 4 receiver. But until he shows me something, I'm not chasing potential.
Jenna just checking in now. Internet connection must have got better. Yeah, that's what we were just talking about, Jenna. We're talking about Deebo, about his potential, and John saying they're basically a running team, and he's probably. I honestly think he's the third option on that team because Kittle's number 1, and I think Brandon Ayuk's number 2, and I think now Deebo Samuel becomes number 3. Now I think they will. The one thing you could have with Samuel, I think, is the Shanahan effect, to where he likes to get Samuel into the reverse game, the little wide receiver sweep. So I think you have that element to his game, but I agree, John. I don't think I have a lot of confidence in Deebo Samuel going forward, especially like you said, that quarterback situation out there. It's not good. Maybe I keep hearing whispers about Matt Ryan maybe donning a San Francisco uniform next year or something, but we shall see, man. Can you imagine? We shall see. Al checking in says, wow, it's a good schedule to build his confidence. Yeah, it's a really good schedule for Justin Herbert. Jenna checking in again. Any predictions on where LeVeon Bell goes? Hey, listen, look, Jenna said it after I said Matt Ryan is coming here. Book it. See, I'm telling you, man, the whispers are out there with Matt Ryan. Before we hold it on our DraftKings line, let's talk about LeVeon Bell. We touched on it a little bit. I didn't really get your take, John, but where do you think option-wise? I'm hearing all kinds of different things. I'm hearing Kansas City, which please God, no. I'm here, for anybody who owns Clyde Edwards-Helaire, please do not have Le'Veon Bell show up at Kansas City. I'm here in Miami because supposedly he practices and trains in Miami, so he's comfortable with the area. But the whole thing is Le'Veon Bell wants to go and win, man. He wants to go somewhere where he's going to get volume and he's going to have the ability to win. So I don't know what you think, John, but I was trying to go through this and look at the teams that need a running back that kind of can use a certain. Yeah, I honestly, for me, it's got to be the Patriots. I don't see anybody else that jumps on the Le'Veon Bell wagon except the Patriots. Do you?
I see Chicago possibly.
Oh, you know what? I didn't think of Chicago.
Losing Tariq Cohen. Needing David Montgomery. Look, we've seen highs, we've seen lows, and we don't know who he is week to week, but they're winning ball games. All right. So I'm sure Nick Foles wouldn't mind having a Le'Veon Bell as a nice little safety valve for him. Like it's tough looking at all the teams. And at this stage of the game, like who needs Lev wants a number one running back position on a playoff team. How many teams out there have an open number one running back position? You know what I mean? And they're on the way to the playoffs. So it's really a limited list. You mentioned Miami. I mean, they've been playing well. I don't know if that's going to happen. The other one that I'm going to say is Buffalo. Can you look? Singletary hasn't been lighting it on fire.
A lot of people were talking about that.
Yeah, and Zach Moss. I mean, he's I liked him going into the year, getting about 30% of the carries and vulturing touchdowns. He hasn't been able to stay on the field. Hey, if you have an undefeated team, it's all about the price tag. It's all about the price tag.
I agree. Al says Bell should be here because we signed Jordan Howard instead, right? And that was last year when everybody was talking about, should we get Lev Bell? Should we get Lev Bell? I mean, listen, I think you probably don't. Obviously, if you get Lev Bell, you're still going to draft Miles Sanders because he's still going to be that guy to back up Lev Bell, right? So I was all on a Lev Bell wagon when he was out there. I was like, yo, go get him. So I agree. Chen says Bell should go to Philly. Not now. I don't want Lev Bell now. No way.
Well,
a lot of people are clamoring for him. I don't want Lev Bell now.
What's crazy is think about 2 years ago that AB and Lev Bell were so disgruntled, and the Steelers didn't know what they were doing, letting their two all pros walk. And here we are, a year and a half later, and the two all pros have no team.
Zero team. We're talking about and we're talking about them as an afterthought, right? We're talking about them as that's what's crazy. That's what's absolutely crazy.
They should go bid for an XFL team.
Yes,
Lev and AB together. Who else could they scrounge up? You could probably get Ricky Williams. I don't know where he is, but he could probably still run the rock.
He's still high. He can't. What about Justin Jefferson this week? Justin Jefferson, man, I tell you, he's another guy that. I know we're talking fantasy, but God damn it, I hate talking about him because he should be on this damn team. Because we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, but that's for another show. John, what do you think about Jefferson this week? Does he do anything? I mean, you're facing Atlanta, who Atlanta can't cover anybody, man. I know Dan Quinn is gone. It's the Raheem Morris show now, so I don't know if that's going to change anything. But I think I have to feel comfortable about Minnesota playing at home against Atlanta, don't you?
Yeah, it's a juicy matchup, no question. He could have a good game. Cook's out, so they may throw the ball slightly more. I don't think the overall MO changes, but yeah, Atlanta's so susceptible to the pass. Jefferson is probably the third guy. They actually haven't been using the tight ends this year. No. But they were, Cook would still get the passes, which I see Madison getting. Thielen's still the number one. They'll sprinkle it around. BC Johnson will pick a couple, but Kirk Cousins isn't the Kirk Cousins of the Washington football team. Dare I say the Washington Redskins of yesteryear? Am I allowed to say the Washington Redskins if he played for the Redskins when he was slinging the rock all over the place? I don't know. But look, Jefferson, he'll get 6 targets, 7 targets, 5, 6 catches. He could break a long one, no question. He could have a 60-yard touchdown and make his day right there. But you kind of have to hope for because he's not going to see double-digit targets.
No, I mean, listen, his MO, his last two games, week 4 and week 5, he's looking at 5 targets per game, right? He had that big monster game with 9 targets, and then you're talking 5 and 5. He only had 3 catches for 23 yards last week. That was kind of a weird game, though, that Seattle game. It was a little weird, so I really don't put that on him, because, again, it's really, the one thing about Kirk Cousins is it's almost like a Jimmy G factor. They don't want Kirk Cousins to overexpose himself, so they don't want him to throw a bunch. So they limit those targets because they limit the attempts. So he's not going to have the ton of attempts that he normally has. So it's going to be who's open more, and that's who's going to get the more targets. Is it going to be Thielen open more, or is it going to be Jefferson open more? So in this game, I think they both get open the equal amount of time. So I honestly think they both have really good games. If you had to ask you which one, I think I would actually pick both of them. Molly's saying, Jenna, what do you have against us? We don't want him. LOL. Talking about Le'Veon Bell. Let's look at DraftKings. For the final few minutes of this show, and we look at, and I like to do this every week. We like to build a little DraftKings lineup. Look at each position. You go one guy that's a lock. And why don't we do this, John? Why don't we go each position? We'll say that, a lock and a gem. Okay. One guy who we say is, a lock to have a good game. And, obviously could be superstar, doesn't matter. And one guy that in that realm that could be one of those gems that's, $2,000-$3,000 less than that top guy. So we start with the quarterback position. And these numbers are exclusively through DraftKings. So when you hear the number that we call out, that is a DraftKings number. I think there's some juicy matchups here, John. From the quarterback position, I think there's some really interesting matchups as well. What are we going to see from Deshaun Watson? He faced a Tennessee defense that is 31st in the league, right? It's at Tennessee, but Mike Vrabel always has he has that Bill Belichick factor sometimes that he's able to take, that big element away from opposing teams. So I don't know. I think my lock, honestly, for this week, for me, is going to be Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff against a San Francisco Niners team that's
at
just
San Fran.
At San Fran, but
at San Fran,
yeah, that defense to me, it's not doing it right now. I think that team is in shambles. I really like Jared Goff at $6,600. I think I would start Jared Goff this week. I really would. And then if I look down a little bit and I give you a guy maybe that is, again, and we talked about it, it's Fitzmagic. It's got to be Fitzmagic. He's going up against the New York Jets at home, $5,900. I mean, listen, to me, that's actually that's $2,000 less than the top guy, Josh Allen. $2,000 less. That's huge, man. That is tremendous. So that's a big value right there. So if you want to build up your running backs and your receivers, by all means, you get a guy like Fitzmagic at $5,900. What do you think, John?
I mean, he's definitely my gem. I mean, I have him. He's actually no, he's not in my lineup now, but no, he's my gem. He's my pickup quarterback for Dak. I'm going with my lock. I like Kyler Murray. Sorry, picking on Dallas and their passing defense. He runs the ball. Dallas can't stop anyone. 7,300 is not necessarily cheap. Look, Deshaun's not a bad value at 7,000. Look, Josh Allen going up Kansas City. I mean, Josh didn't necessarily light the world on fire last week, which is fine. But now you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, who have a pretty good defense. We all overlook, but from the end of last year, through into this year, their defense is solid. So it's not like it used to be. He may have a little tough sledding, So Kyler Murray's my guy this week.
You like Kyler Murray? I was looking at him.
Kyler.
I like Kyler. Yeah, I like Kyler. I mean, up against Dallas, 28th ranked defense, right? I mean, listen, they haven't been setting the world on fire there. I'll tell you what, for the running backs, I mean, your boy Big Ben has got a nice matchup against Cleveland too. So he could have a nice juicy matchup out there playing home against those Browns.
I don't want to
Right?
touch that game.
Browns.
I do not want to touch that game fantasy wise, period. The only thing I might touch is James Conner. It's the only thing that's the only thing that I feel comfortable with the Steelers D as well. But I feel comfortable with nothing. You never know. It's that division matchup. They're already talking about the revenge game for Myles Garrett or whatever, and that whole debacle with Mason Rudolph last year. And there's just way too much. Cleveland's riding high. They only got one loss on the year. All right. Even though the team has not been all that great, they only got one loss on the year. All right. It's they're going into Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's undefeated. They want to punch Pittsburgh in the mouth. They're sick of it. Now, who knows how the game's going to play out, but I don't know. I don't feel comfortable with anything from that game this week. Kareem Hunt, are they going to be down to Pittsburgh and he's going to catch 5 passes? Is he going to run? Are they going to be able to run? I could see so many scenarios happening.
It's interesting. I mean, listen, that's a rivalry that you know all about, right? You know all about those games. So listen, if anybody wants to listen, now's the time to listen, man, because John has definitely done that, right? Al says great pick, pass, run, and get Hopkins at wide receiver. Obviously, he's talking about Kyler Murray. So yeah, listen, it is a good pick. I mean, I like Kyler. I get a little skeevy with Kyler sometimes because I just think sometimes, depending on the matchup, it could be really, really dicey. But he showed last week he started off really cold and then he just exploded. I mean, it's like the Lamar Jackson effect, right? We talked about that last year. Lamar Jackson would have like 7 fantasy points in 3 quarters, and all of a sudden he ends up with 40 because he explodes in the 4th, right? So, I mean, Kyler has that same ability. Now, look at the running back position. Again, I think there's some really good plays. I'll tell you what, John, week in and week out, I don't care what the matchup is. I don't care who they're playing, home or away. Doesn't matter. Mike Davis is 100% a lock in my fantasy lineup. Okay? Mike Davis has been nothing but phenomenal. Okay, taking over for Christian McCaffrey. Now, I will say this: the people that keep saying that Christian McCaffrey is a system running back, you guys are asinine. Stop. Okay, but what it does tell you is Mike Davis can still get it done. Okay, he's still. I told everybody this, and you said the same thing. The guy's only 27 years old. It's a really good scheme out there. It's a really good scheme. Okay, Joe Judge. This is the guy, right? This is the LSU coordinator. Right? Or Joe Brady. I'm sorry. Joe Brady, the LSU coordinator. You watched what he did in college last year. Right? And my buddy John James, the gambler, consistently says that he feels that he is going to get a head coaching job next year, specifically for what he's done on that offense in Carolina. So for my money, Mike Davis, they're playing at home against Chicago, 7,000. Listen, his last 3 games, he's consistently above 20 points per game. He's getting, John, the magic word, the volume. He's getting all the volume in the passing game and the running game. So if I have to take a running back, number 1, my lock is Mike Davis. Then if I go down the line a little bit, I'm going again with Mr. Gurley. Todd Gurley is back, people. He is back. When you talk about lineups against Minnesota Vikings, they still can't stop anybody. Their defense has still been trash. When we talk, right, again, $6,300, he's playing at Minnesota. I get it, but they continue to give Todd Gurley the ball. He continues to produce. So my 2 picks, I'm going Mike Davis, Todd Gurley. DraftKings. John, you're up.
Wow, I'm jotting stuff down here. Look, what I have in my first, I just do a quick initial lineup or whatever, throw some guys in. Look, I like Raheem Mostert at 6,300. I really think that he's going to perform this week. Excuse me. I think he's going to perform. I just feel he's going to get the volume. He's back. McKinnon's an afterthought. He gets the catches. He breaks one. It feels like every week. I do like your Mike Davis. I mean, I feel like he's just consistent. He
Yeah.
gets the rushing workload. He gets the receiving workload. Kind of like what I said about Freeman to Barkley. It's Mike Davis to McCaffrey. It's give him 70, 80% of what McCaffrey would do. That's what Mike Davis will do. Along the same lines, Freeman. I'm going Devonta Freeman at 4,900 as a cheap buy. The other one, I'd like Damian Harris at 5,000 against Denver, even though Denver's rush defense is decent. With the quarterback position and injuries, I just don't know how competitive that game's going to be. I could see Damian Harris being a good value at 5,000. And then in the mid, I like Gaskin at 5,400. And then just in the mid range, Jonathan Taylor got a good matchup, 6,400. And James Robinson, he's getting a little pricey. I like him this week, but it's like, do I like him 6,800? I don't know that I'll have him in my lineups this week, but it is a pretty good matchup.
I like Gaskins at 5,400. I say Gaskins. I'm sorry, Gaskin. I like Gaskin at 5,400. I think that's a really good number for him. And we just talked about this. Chase Edmonds, Kenyon Drake. Look at their number: 5,200 for Edmonds, 5,300 for Drake. Only $100 separates the two, and actually Chase Edmonds has the higher fantasy points per game between the two. So something to keep an eye on as this continues to go on. Wide receivers. Tons of wide receivers, right? We could talk about wide receivers all night long, but again, when we're looking at that top guy, I think there's no way around it, right? DeAndre Hopkins has just been the steadiest wide receiver in the game. Okay, he has been electric. And he is playing the 31st ranked defense at Dallas Cowboys. If there's any such thing called a stone cold lock, to me, this is one. You put him in as your number one guy. But then you got to go down, right? You have to look and find that gem, find those guys. Now, again, I tried T.Y. Hilton last week. He kind of burned me. I thought that was the week for him to kind of break out. But what about Brandon Cooks? Two guys. Brandon Cooks, who I did call, and I said, this is the week for Brandon Cooks last week, and it was the week. He finally clicked. This week, he's still only $5,000 facing the Tennessee Titans, and right below him is Michael Gallup. Now, what I will say is, anybody notice who Andy Dalton was throwing the ball to when he got into the game? It was Michael Gallup. And why? Because Andy Dalton likes to go down the field all the time. And the one guy that's going to go up and get the ball is going to be Michael Gallup. So I think he's a huge beneficiary of this Dak Prescott unfortunate injury that excels Andy Dalton in the lineup. So I'm going Cooks and Gallup as my sleeper guys that are under that 5,000 mark or lower. And for me, DeAndre Hopkins is the lock. What about you, John?
Man, that kind of hurt listening to your Gallup speech there, because I was high. Look, on some leagues I went heavy at running back. I was a little short at receiver, and Gallup was the guy that I was banking on in season-long leagues, and he's been very, very disappointing. All right, he had the one good week, but you start him for the first couple of weeks, he does nothing. Then you bench him, and then he does something. And then you start him, and then he does nothing. So that's basically the Gallup story. All right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that Dallas offense is going to look like. I'm ready with bye weeks and COVID and everything setting in and injuries. I am ready to drop Gallup in a shallow league to fill out my roster. I got Darren Waller on the bye this week. I need to get a tight end. Like I said, 5 bench spots. Okay, you got James Conner, Gaskin, James Robinson. You got Juju, Lockett. I mean, there's a lot of guys. There's not room for everybody, and Gallup may be on the cutting block on that one. I'll just bench him in any other normal leagues. But I'm with you. I went with Kyler Murray to switch gears. I went with Kyler Murray at quarterback, sticking with pairing him up with Hopkins, just like you. My lock. That's why I went Murray and I went with Hopkins. And also my sleeper at quarterback of Ryan Fitzpatrick, like good value. I'm going with Preston Williams as my
Oh, I
good
like that.
value at receiver. So I'm taking my two quarterbacks, the two guys that I think are going to blow up, pricey and not. Well, I do that a lot where I'll put that second receiver in. So Preston Williams, I like him this week, 4,700. And I'm going with Tim Patrick. No matter what it is down in
Ooh.
Denver, look, I won some money on daily with the last time Denver played with going with Tim Patrick after Sutton was out, looking at the targets he was getting when Rippon came in, and then same thing with what's his face? Who's
With Jeff Driscoll.
Yeah, with Driscoll. I mean, he's getting the targets. They trust this guy, these backups. And so I got Tim Patrick 4,500. So him and Preston Williams allow me to go Hopkins, Murray, and spend some money in some other places.
And that's exactly the point. Like you said, guys that are under that 5,000, 4,500 yard mark, if you can bank on those guys, they allow you to get that 1, 2, 3 stack, man, which is tremendous. We got some coming in for Twits here. Fuller, AJ Brown, or Drake in your flex for this week. AJ Brown comes back from his first game and scores. William Fuller looked I wouldn't say reborn, but he looked a little rejuvenated. Kenyon Drake, you throw him in the trash right now. To me, this is AJ Brown or William Fuller. Who do we take, John? What is PGH John 36? What's those spreadsheets reading for you?
That's it. I'm reading. I'm trying to read the spreadsheets. Yeah, I'm going AJ Brown.
Going AJ Brown?
Yeah, I think I'm going AJ Brown. Filler, it's really almost a toss up in reality. I could see either of them blowing up, but I'm going AJ Brown.
Yeah, I mean, Will Fuller's got a nice Tennessee. He's got a nice matchup against Tennessee. They are we talked about 31st ranked defense in the league. He's listen, even with them being bad, he has gotten the targets. That's for sure, right? He has scored in each of the last 3 weeks. He's been getting around 6, 7, 8 targets, except for the first game he got 10. But I think, like you said, I don't think you can go wrong on either of these guys. Now, AJ Brown, it's his second game back. How will he do? Listen, he was good last night, man. He got 9 targets, right? He got 9 targets and again, 7 for 82, and he scored typical AJ Brown fashion. So I don't know, John. I'll be honest with you. I think I'm going to lean towards AJ Brown. Yeah. I do. I think I'm going to lean toward AJ Brown in this one.
Well, and you have Corey Davis on the COVID list. You have Adam or Humphreys out. So look, granted, they want to run the ball and they want to run it with Henry. Somehow Tannehill just puts up stat. He's not going to throw for 300 yards, but he's going to get 3 touchdowns somehow, some way. You know what I mean? So all there is Jonnu Smith, who is my tight end in my DraftKings lineup, or AJ Brown. That is the passing game. Derrick Henry's not catching balls. Nobody else is there to catch balls. Those are the 2 guys. So yeah, but I could see Fuller. Look, we've seen the roulette in Houston with Fuller, Cobb. Week 1, or was it week 1 or week 2? Cobb had a good game, and Fuller had a good game, then Cooks had a good game. Once again, look, I'm banking on the guy that I know is the number 1 receiver without the number 2 and number 3 playing over the guy that you don't know who it's going to go to this week.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, listen, the one thing, I mean, if you look at it that way, it's definitely a really, really good way to look at it.
It would have been completely if AJ Brown only got 5 targets or 6 targets or so, completely different story. But seeing him get the volume that first week back makes me comfortable that he'll get volume plus some, moving forward.
No, I agree. 100%. 100%. And then we'll look at real fast before we get out of here. We don't normally look at the tight end position, but why the hell not? Because there has been some decent tight ends. You have to pick a tight end, right? When you talk about DraftKings. So obviously, listen, Jonnu Smith, I mean, you know, are we finding a gem in Janu Smith again? I mean, this guy he seems to just, you know, first week he has a touchdown, then he has 2 touchdowns, still gets 8 for 61 in week 3, and then now he's going for 2 touchdowns again. I mean, he's secretly developing a great rapport with Ryan Tannehill. And again, like you said, Corey Davis on the COVID list. I mean, he's taking these opportunities and he's maximizing his value. But then you come back, it's the Robert Tonyan factor. Is Tonyan going to show that he's the guy, right? Is he going to show that it wasn't a mirage, right? Is he going to show? I'll tell you what, for me, the lock of the week, I hate to say this, Eagles fans, it's got to be Mark Andrews. The Eagles cannot cover a tight end to save their life. Okay, they're 30th ranked against the pass. Mark Andrews goes up against this Philadelphia Eagles terrible cover 2 scheme, and I think he's going to run all over them. I have nightmares, so I think you put that in there. For me, he is a lock as a tight end in DraftKings, 100%. Now, I will take the juicy $3,900 Austin Hooper. Okay, Austin Hooper, $3,900 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know you don't want to touch anybody in that game, John, but that matchup to me is too good to pass up. If I get down to that tight end position and I only have a couple grand to play with, I think I go Austin Hooper. What do you think?
Yeah, I got Hooper written down. Like I don't want to start him in season-long fantasy.
Right.
But when you look at that $3,900 price tag,
right,
yes, it's juicy. I mean, it's a tough defense, but yes, I mean, I have Hooper written down. You know, I already mentioned Jonnu Smith. That's who I'm rolling with at his price tag. I think he will be. Look, Mark Andrews pretty much lives or dies by the touchdown. I mean, he's not catching tons of balls, and he gets one just about every week.
Al's a true Eagle fan, man. I love it. He said, yeah, over 24 points for me last week, but I can't take anybody against. I know it's tough, man. It's tough. Yeah. It's really tough. It's hard to even watch a game, right? I get it. Trust me. I get it.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith is my guy. I wrote Hooper down, but if you want to go super cheap, like not even cheap. Like super cheap, but look, I'm in a deep league and I got to pick up a tight end because I don't carry a backup tight end for Darren Waller. All right. So I'm looking out there. What do I do this week? I'm thinking Tyler Eifert, 3,400. He's actually been getting a decent amount of looks. You know, they're playing against Detroit. They're at home. You know, Eifert's gotten 7 and 6 targets the past 2 weeks.
He has.
So I'm just saying, if anything, him or Jimmy Graham. I don't even know what his price tag is. Season long, that's what I was that's what's available on the waivers, and those are the 2 guys that I'm, you know, kind of looking at is the Jimmy Graham and the Tyler Eifert. You know, deep benches. There wasn't a whole lot out there.
Jimmy Graham used to be a good value because he was consistently in that 3,000 mark, and you know he's been scoring. He's been playing well this year. So now he's up to $5,000. So now he's really not that. He's not a bargain anymore.
I'm not going file. I'll go Eifert for 3,400 before I do that.
I listen. I completely agree.
Let alone Jonnu Smith at 5,200. I don't know why you would go Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Is Tonyan a good start? You know, as a tight end. Listen, I'm going to say yes. I am because listen, this is the Allen Lazard factor. He's not playing, and nobody else has stepped up to be the number 2 guy in this offense, right? And I you know, Javon, I almost did it again. Why? I always say Javon friggin' Walker. What is wrong with me? Okay, I always say Javon friggin' awesome. Walker.
And Davy Jones.
Like, what the hell is wrong with us? But no, in all seriousness, Devontae Adams, whether he's back or not, which in all likelihood he's going to be back, you know, he's the number 1 option. Aaron Jones is the number 2 option on this team, but the number 3 option is Robert Tonyan. And for a team that likes to throw the ball around, and we talked about this, Aaron Rodgers likes his tight end, man. I think Robert Tonyan is a very good start this week. I do, and if you look at him on DraftKings, he's 5,100. He's playing against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's defense, we all thought was going to be a lock, is really not been this year. They haven't been that great. So listen, he's not going to get you 3 touchdowns. I get it, but I think he's going to get you a good enough target to catch value that you won't have to worry about touchdowns, especially for the tight end in your DraftKings lineup. So listen, if you're looking at that kind of number, I think Tanyan's a good start. I would start him.
If Tanyan was out there, I would take him over Graham or Eifert, but he was the hot pickup. Right. I don't know that he will perform a whole lot better than either of those two, at least this week. What you said is right on target with, Rodgers having Lazard out, but I don't know that he's getting that comfortable with the tight end as he's just happy to see a familiar face, with the receiving core that he's had to deal with. Yeah, look, Jamal Williams catches balls. Aaron Jones catches balls. Devontae Adams, as far as I'm aware, should be back. Please come back for my team, okay? It's not been fun.
Please come back to me.
Yeah, so I'm expecting him back. And if MVS plays, I see a little bit of a downtick for Tanyan. I think a lot of it, the past 2 games have been out of necessity. And once they start to get a little healthier, that he may take a little dip.
Yeah, I like that. I think he scores this week. I do. I think
he's looking there. He's looking at the red. I don't care what it is. If you got 5 touchdowns through 4 games, they're looking at you in the red zone.
Right. I'm looking at. I'm going to give you a stat line of about 6 for 48 and a touchdown. I think 6 for 50, 6 for 48, kind of that kind of range in a touchdown. I think that's what you get from Tanyan this week.
And I like it, but I'm going 4 for 48 with a touchdown.
Oh, I like that. So you're 2 catches off. That's all right. It's all good.
Yeah,
we're close.
You're 2 catches off.
Yeah. I like that. We're gonna find out next week, brother. That's what we're gonna find out next week. But yeah, listen, John. Any last before we get out of here? Anybody, we've talked over to DraftKings. We've talked about everything, obviously waivers, things of that nature. Any guy in DraftKings, anything that we didn't look at, maybe one guy that maybe, that super guy that nobody's really looking at, nobody can find. If you really need a flyer on somebody, I mean, scanning through, you got a ton of work over there, a ton of spreadsheets. Last night I hit on McKenzie. I had Isaiah McKenzie. He was a guy that I looked at. I was like, listen, for $800, it was $800 for DraftKings. I mean, listen, it's a steal because listen, at the end of the day, if you need, you want to stack your lineup, you're looking for these low budget guys. They're really out there. And that's how guys win. People forget about that. The start percentages of people. That's how guys win because they take those few guys, like you mentioned, like a Tim Patrick. Not many people are going to be starting Tim Patrick. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to start him. I mean, you could look at a guy like maybe a Myles Boykin, right? Who's going up against Philadelphia, who has not been able to stop anybody, right? They haven't been able to stop anybody. Maybe Kenny Stills gets in the action. $3,400. I'll give you one right now. Again, I keep talking about this guy, and they're playing Denver this week. 3,500. Look at Damiere Byrd. Damiere Byrd for the New England Patriots. Cam Newton coming back. This kid has been getting targets. He's getting looked at, and he's starting to get separation. And I think they're going to like this guy, and they're going to use him more. I think Harry's going to be more of a possession guy, and Byrd's going to be their speed guy. So if they can have Edelman and Harry, and then they get Byrd as their number 3 going long, I'll tell you what, he could be a really good find, especially this week against Denver.
Yeah, I mean, he showed that he could do it, and when you're talking at this price point, I mean, you're not looking for consistency. Right. These guys are consistently doing it. They're not priced at that price point. Yeah, they're up at $6,000. Okay. So yes, absolutely. It's all about the spot and having the opportunity to do it. I'm going to go with AJ Green. Dare I go AJ Green? Dare I go AJ Green? Look, I'm not really happy about it, but cheap $3,900. AJ Green.
Yeah,
I mean, we're 1 year away from him being $7,000. And Burrow's a decent quarterback. I mean, I don't know if AJ Green's officially going to play after his injury. I mean, he was limited, with the hamstring. But I mean, $3,900. Like, I'm not going to do it because I'm not an AJ Green believer. He's burned me too many times. But
Isn't that
I mean,
crazy?
that's something to think about. And I mean, I'll go with the vacated LeVeon Bell spot. Look, I don't think anybody wants to own anything on the Jets, but somebody has to rush the ball.
Somebody has to.
And after releasing Lev Bell, I can't go with Frank Gore. I got to go LaMichael P. Ryan at $4,000.
That.
He's $4,000. Look, I don't know that I'm going to pull the trigger on him either, but he's a sleeper guy. Look, if you got someone wasting away on your bench, go pick him up because look, he could get some workload over in New York. It's worth a flyer. Like I said, if you're holding on to a guy that's doing nothing anyway, go hold on to a different guy that's doing nothing, but has potential.
Yeah, and we'll end on this. Al second says, "What about the small guy in Tampa at wide receiver? Don't know his name, Brady. That's a Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller's playing that Wes Welker, Julian Edelman role. Brady always finds those guys, man. He's actually 4,000 on DraftKings. He's not a bad play either. He's been getting consistent targets as well. There's another name to look at,
especially if you have Evans or Godwin out. Absolutely, I will. I'll go with Scotty P. Know what I'm saying?
Scotty P.
Know what I'm
From
saying?
Warner Miller. Scotty P.
No regrets.
Oh, that's fine.
Not much, however. Nope.
I just watched that the other day too. That's a great movie, 100%. But man, John, listen, great show, buddy. We're gonna get out of here. Hour and 27 minutes. We went 27 minutes over, but again, we go over because we get the comments. So people get the comments, they bring it in, we bring it back, which is great. Love every minute of it. But again, Fantasy Firebox at Heat Ratio Sports. If you're not following us by now, please give us a follow. This again will be on podcasts everywhere you get your podcast from. Again, every Sunday, if you want to join me, I will be live at 9:30 a.m. for a fantasy football show on at Fox Sports The Gambler. It is part of our Sunday service lineup. And I will also be back at noon as part of the Heat Ratio Sports Network. John will join me if he has time. If not, I will be going solo, taking you up to 12:45, just talking about the new things that happen, whether it be new injuries, late minute scratches, late minute weather conditions, whatever they are. Just let's talk about it, see what everybody's doing, see how everybody's lives going, and maybe we'll even build a contest together. Who knows? But as always, everybody, thanks for following us at TCatillo23, Tony Jigsaw Cotillo, John Coker at PGH John 36. Follow us, rate us, review us, whatever you got to do. Follow the Heat Ratio Sports Wagon. And everybody, as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you on Sunday. Good luck.